Welcome back to the channel. Today's story isn't about breaking news or dramatic rumors. It's about something far more human. Behind the laughter, television lights, and decades of shared success, Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos represent a kind of love many people quietly hope for but rarely see up close. This story imagines a private moment between two long-term partners, one not meant for cameras or applause, where honesty replaces performance. It's about what happens when time slows down just enough for two people to reflect on what they've built together, what truly matters, and how love evolves when it's rooted in years, not headlines. This isn't gossip, and it isn't speculation. It's a thoughtful exploration of partnership, emotional maturity, and the courage it takes to speak openly about life, change, and the future while love is still very much alive. A love that grew in real time. Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos met young, fell in love quickly, and chose commitment before the world was watching closely. Their relationship didn't unfold in a fantasy setting. It grew in real time, shaped by auditions, long workdays, parenting, and personal growth. Over the years, they didn't just share milestones, they shared seasons of uncertainty, exhaustion, and reinvention. That kind of longevity creates a bond that goes beyond romance. It becomes history. Inside jokes become emotional shorthand. Silence becomes safe. The love that grows in that space isn't loud, but it's strong. It holds memories of who you were and who you had to become. This story rests in that reality, not perfection, but endurance. A relationship that didn't survive because it avoided hardship, but because it learned how to move through it together, choosing each other again and again. The conversation that wasn't dramatic, just honest. One quiet afternoon, without urgency or crisis, Mark asked Kelly to sit with him. No phones, no schedules, no distractions. Not because something was wrong, but because something mattered. These are the conversations couples often postpone, assuming time will always be generous. But this one wasn't about fear, it was about clarity. Mark spoke about noticing time move faster, about watching their children become adults, about realizing how easy it is to live on autopilot even in a good life. His tone wasn't heavy, it was thoughtful. Kelly listened, sensing that this wasn't a speech, but an offering. He wasn't trying to change their life, he was trying to honor it. Sometimes love shows up not in grand gestures, but in moments where someone trusts you enough to speak from the deepest, quietest place inside themselves. When love talks about time instead of loss, rather than framing the future as something to fear, Mark spoke about time as something to respect. He talked about how love shouldn't be something that traps either person in obligation or guilt. His words weren't about absence, they were about presence, about choosing joy, curiosity, and growth even as life changes. He wanted Kelly to know that loving him didn't mean shrinking herself or living cautiously. Love, in his eyes, was meant to expand, not limit. That idea landed heavily, not because it was sad, but because it was generous. Kelly felt emotion rise, not from panic, but from being seen so clearly. It's rare to hear someone you love articulate trust in your strength before you ever doubt it. That kind of love doesn't cling, it steadies. It says, "I believe in who you are becoming." Kelly's response? Love that feels everything at once. Kelly didn't respond with perfectly chosen words. She responded like a human being, emotion first, logic later. She felt gratitude, fear, love, and vulnerability collide in her chest. When someone reflects your resilience back to you before you've named it yourself, it can feel overwhelming. Her reaction wasn't about rejecting his words, it was about how deeply they mattered. She expressed what many partners feel but rarely say out loud, that shared life becomes identity, that love grows roots. Mark didn't dismiss that. He met it gently, reminding her that interdependence doesn't mean losing yourself. In that exchange, there was no winner or lesson, just mutual understanding deepening. It was a moment where love didn't perform strength but practiced it, where emotion wasn't corrected, only held. A different definition of partnership. What made this moment meaningful wasn't the topic. It was the intention. Mark wasn't trying to prepare Kelly for loss. He was reaffirming partnership. He wanted her to know that love isn't proven by suffering or sacrifice alone, but by wanting the other person to thrive in every version of life. That mindset reframes commitment. It shifts love from possession to support. Kelly realized that partnership at this stage of life looked different than it did in their 20s. It wasn't about proving devotion, it was about trust. Trust that they could grow individually without growing apart. Trust that joy didn't require permission. Trust that love could be both anchor and wind. That understanding didn't weaken their bond, it strengthened it, giving it room to breathe instead of weight to carry. How words change the way we notice life. After that conversation, nothing dramatic changed, and yet everything felt slightly sharper. Kelly noticed small details she once rushed past, shared glances, familiar routines, the comfort of ordinary moments. Mark's words didn't haunt her, they grounded her. They turned everyday life into something intentional. She found herself more present, more appreciative, more aware of how fragile and beautiful normalcy can be. This wasn't sadness, it was clarity. The kind that makes you put your phone down, listen more closely, laugh a little longer. When love is spoken thoughtfully, it doesn't create fear, it creates attention. It reminds you that connection isn't guaranteed by time alone, it's sustained by care. And sometimes the most loving thing someone can do is remind you not to rush through what you already have. Why this story feels so familiar. People connect to stories like this because they reflect a truth many recognize but struggle to articulate. We often avoid conversations about time, growth, and change, not because they're negative, but because they feel vulnerable. This story resonates because it shows love without drama, depth without crisis. It reflects the quiet bravery of choosing honesty while things are still good. In a world that celebrates loud gestures, this moment honors emotional intelligence. It reminds us that love isn't just about staying, it's about how we stay, how we support, release expectations, and trust each other's strength. That's why this imagined exchange feels real, because it mirrors conversations many couples wish they could have, but postpone, and because it shows that love doesn't weaken when it acknowledges change, it matures. The promise that didn't need words. Kelly didn't need to make a formal promise. The understanding was already there, settling quietly between them. She didn't walk away with fear. She walked away with resolve. A renewed intention to live fully, love openly, and honor the partnership they built not by clinging to it, but by nurturing it. Mark's trust became a mirror she could look into when doubt crept in. And in that reflection, she saw not just a wife or partner, but a whole person, capable, resilient, and deeply loved. That's the kind of gift that doesn't fade. It doesn't demand anything. It simply stays, offering strength when needed and comfort when remembered. Love like that doesn't announce itself. It lives quietly, doing its work over time. Final thoughts. Love that makes room for life. This story isn't about endings, it's about intention, about the kind of love that doesn't wait for crisis to speak honestly. It reminds us that the most meaningful moments often happen away from noise, in rooms where no one is watching. Love that trusts, that encourages growth, that values joy as much as loyalty, that's love built to last. Kelly and Mark's imagined moment reflects something universal, the desire to be loved without being limited, supported without being controlled. It shows that the deepest form of commitment isn't fear of loss, but confidence in each other's strength. And perhaps that's the quiet truth worth carrying forward, that real love doesn't ask us to stop living. It asks us to live well, together, for as long as we can, with honesty, courage, and care.